Sometimes the best way to really get a handle on a huge historical event, something that affects millions of people, is to see it through the eyes of just one person. And that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to explore the Great Migration, but we're going to do it through the personal journal of a young girl named Ivy Mitchell. And it all starts right here, May 7th, 1942. With this one simple sentence, we're pulled right into her world. This isn't just a history lesson from a textbook. This is her life story as it's happening. Okay, so let's set the scene. We're in Mississippi. The year is 1942, so World War II is in full swing. And our guide through all of this is Ivy, a 12-year-old girl who just got a very, very special birthday gift. And right off the bat, you get a feel for her family's situation. Her dad had told her there wouldn't be any presents this year because times were tough, but her parents managed to surprise her with this journal. And for Ivy, this isn't just a book, it's everything. It's a place where she can write down her whole life. But Ivy's world is being squeezed by these huge, powerful forces. Her family's day-to-day life is being shaped by an economic system that is just almost impossible to break free from. See, the Mitchells are sharecroppers. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means they work land that doesn't belong to them. And at the end of the year, a massive chunk of everything they grow goes right back to the landowner as rent. And here is the trap, in her mother's own words. The landowner, this guy, Mr. Greenfield, he doesn't just own the land. He also owns the store where they have to buy their seeds, their tools, everything. It creates this vicious cycle of debt, one that her mother is terrified they will never, ever escape. And the inequality, wow. It wasn't just about money. Just take a look at the two schools Ivy describes. Her school, the one for Negro children, is a super long walk from her house. It has a hole in the roof, and the kids have to share books. Now, compare that to the school for white children. It's closer, it's a nicer building, and every single student gets their own books. The difference is just night and day. And the thing is, Ivy writes about this with a clarity that's just, honestly, it's heartbreaking. She's only 12, but she gets it. She understands the system she's trapped in, and she even has a name for it, segregation. Now, it's so important to get this. This wasn't just, the way things were. Nope. It was a deliberate system. Separate water fountains, separate schools, separate everything, all of it designed to keep the races apart and to make it very clear who was on top. And that system, that whole legal framework, it had a name. Jim Crow. These weren't just suggestions or local customs. These were actual laws written down to enforce segregation and to systematically deny Black Americans the same basic rights and opportunities as their white neighbors. And this wasn't some abstract thing, right? It was personal. It was in the day-to-day interactions. Ivy writes down exactly what the landowner, Mr. Greenfield, said to her father. Think about that language. Calling a grown man boy, accusing him of laziness. It's all about disrespect and power. And Ivy, she sees your dad's reaction. It's subtle, just a tightening of his jaw. He can't say a word back. He can't defend himself. Because, as Ivy explains, for a Black man in Mississippi in 1942, talking back could get you beaten, or worse. That constant threat, it was just a part of life. So you've got this immense pressure, right? The debt is piling up, the daily injustice is grinding them down, and the future looks pretty hopeless. But then, something arrives in the mail, something that could change absolutely everything. And that leads to the big question, the one hanging over this whole family. They are trapped. Trapped by debt, trapped by Jim Crow, trapped by a system built to keep them down. Is there any way out? Is there any hope at all for a different kind of life? And the answer, believe it or not, comes in an envelope. It's a letter from Uncle Eugene, all the way out in Los Angeles, California. He used to be a sharecropper too, right there in Mississippi, until he left for the very same reason. The bills just got to be too much. And the news in this letter is an absolute bombshell. He's got a job in a factory, building airplanes for the war. He says the factories are desperate for workers. And here's the kicker. He says they're offering good jobs to women and to Negroes. An opportunity that was just completely unimaginable back home. So, what's happening with Uncle Eugene and what the Mitchell family is now thinking about doing? This wasn't just them. They were part of something so much bigger, one of the largest internal movements of people in American history. So, let's zoom out for a second and look at the big picture. And what's kind of wild is that Ivy learns this exact word, migration, in school right around this time. For her teacher, it's a vocabulary word. For her family, this simple word represented a monumental, life-altering, terrifying, and hopeful decision. 6 million. That's the estimated number of African Americans who left the South during this period. Just let that number sink in for a second. The Mitchell's choice, their fears, their hopes, that story was happening 6 million times over. It was a shift that would literally reshape the entire nation.
And this whole movement really happened in two big waves. The first one kicked off around World War I, with families heading to northern cities like Chicago and Detroit. Then you get the second wave, during and after World War II, and that's where Ivy's story fits right in. That's when people, like her uncle Eugene, also started heading west to places like Los Angeles.
So when you boil it all down, why did they leave? Well, it's everything we've already seen through Ivy's eyes, isn't it? They were being pushed out by the dead end of sharecropping and the daily cruelty of Jim Crow. And they were being pulled toward the promise of better jobs and maybe, just maybe, a better education and a better life for their kids. And it turns out there was a very specific reason those factory jobs were suddenly an option. Ivy's dad finds out that President Franklin Roosevelt himself had signed an executive order. It said that companies making things for the military were not allowed to discriminate based on race. It was a crack in the wall of segregation, a little window of opportunity that the war had opened up. And so that brings us right back to the Mitchell family and to this impossible choice. On one hand, you have a mountain of debt and daily disrespect. On the other, a letter with a tiny glimmer of hope, thousands of miles away. So I'll leave you with this. Put yourself in their shoes. What would you do? Do you stick with the brutal life you know, or do you risk absolutely everything for the chance at something better?